Hey, what's up? I have two mini PCs from KAMRUI, both from the same P2 series and even with the same model number, P2. However, they are powered by different processors. One of them is equipped with the AMD Ryzen Embedded R2544, while the other has an Intel Core i5-12600H. In this video, we will be testing a computer with the AMD processor. We will come back to the Intel-powered mini PC in about a week. There will be a link to it in the description under this video. You know, the Ryzen Embedded R2544 was originally designed for embedded and industrial environments because it offers a reliable balance of power efficiency, thermal control, and longevity. However, KAMRUI decided to try it out in a mini PC for home and office use. We will see how it handles home and office tasks and even play a few games on it. But let's start with the unboxing, design and disassembly of the KAMRUI P2 mini PC. You know, we have already tested many mini PCs from KAMRUI on our channel Tech Brothers, and they all come in the same packaging and with the same accessories. There is a product information on the back of the box, such as series, model, input voltage, color, RAM and ROM. We will talk about more RAM and ROM later in this video. Inside the box is the mini PC itself. As well as two packages containing a VESA mount, an HDMI cable, a power cable, and a power adapter. As for the design of the KAMRUI P2 mini PC, it looks like it is made of metal because of its silver color. However, it is actually all plastic. There is a bronze-colored grille under the top cover, though it is also made of plastic. The company logo and the AMD Radeon graphics sticker are located on the top panel. On the bottom we can see 4 rubber feet and a large fan grill. We will try to get a look at the fan when we disassemble the computer. There are hot air vents on the right and left. The front panel of the mini PC features the most commonly used ports, such as USB 3.2 Gen 1 Type-C, 2 USB 3.2 Gen 1 Type-A ports, and a 3.5mm audio jack, as well as a power button. The back panel has 4 more USB 3.2 Gen 1 Type-A ports, RJ45 Ethernet, DP 1.4, HDMI 2.0, and DC-in ports. There is also a lock switch here. First, you need to take a screwdriver and loosen this screw. Then you can flip the lock switch and remove the top cover of the computer. Here we see a metal cooling plate. Let's remove it. So we go to the RAM and SSD. This mini PC comes with M.2 2280 SATA SSD from DLR brand with a capacity of 512 gigs. We will test its read and write speeds a little later. You can also install a second SATA or NVMe disk here. The computer supports up to 4 TB of storage. As for the RAM, there is a 16 gigs DDR4 SODIMM module installed in this mini PC. To be honest, I have never heard of this brand. You can install a second RAM module for up to 16 gigs, and then the system will run in dual-channel mode, which could potentially boost performance. So the KAMRUI P2 supports a maximum of 32 gigs of RAM. You know, I really like this solution with a quick access to RAM and storage. You don't need to take the whole computer apart to replace or upgrade the RAM or SSD. I think it is still possible to remove the bottom cover of the mini PC, but I don't see the point in doing that. Okay, now let's turn on the computer and check the boot speed right away. I should mention that I have already used this mini PC before to install benchmarks and games. So the computer booted up in 23 seconds. That's pretty fast for a budget mini PC. The KAMRUI P2 runs Windows 11 Pro out of the box, but I think you can install any other operating system on it, for example, Linux. I am a Windows user, so I'm not going to change anything. the operating system is activated and licensed, so no further action is required. All you need to do is sign in to your Microsoft account to sync your apps and files. Okay, now let's move on to the hardware, specifically the processor. The KAMRUI P2 mini PC is equipped with the AMD Ryzen Embedded R2544 CPU. It is built on the Zen Plus architecture using a 12nm process. The processor operates at a base clock of 3.35 GHz, and you can boost up to 3.7 GHz. The typical TDP of this processor is 45 watts. However, during my use, the computer consumed only about 3 watts in standby mode and about 12.5 watts in stress test mode. There is probably some kind of limit set on the processor that prevents it from reaching 45 watts. To be honest, I don't know how to remove it. We will be testing this computer at a maximum TDP of 12.5 watts. As I mentioned before, the computer has a built-in fan for cooling, and it runs very quietly when the computer is in standby mode, at just about 39 decibels. When the CPU or SSD is under heavy load, the fan runs faster and makes more noise, which you can already hear, but it is not annoying, about 40 decibels. The KAMRUI P2 is a really quiet mini PC. I have already told you about and shown you the SSD installed in the KAMRUI P2 mini PC. Now let's test its speed. It has a reading speed of 534 megabits per second and the writing speed of 452 megabits per second. You know, that is the maximum speed of the SATA SSDs. I think it would be better to replace it with the NVMe SSD, or at least install the NVMe SSD in the second slot, so the computer would run faster. Now let's go ahead and run a few benchmark tests to check the CPU and GPU performance. You know, the AMD Ryzen Embedded R2544 is a competitor to the popular Intel N150 CPU. Even the manufacturer compares their performance in one of the official images. I tested the KAMRUI mini PC based on the Intel N150 last year, so let's compare them as well. The first benchmark is Geekbench 6, and the KAMRUI P2 powered by the AMD Embedded R2544 CPU has 18 points in a single-core test and 77 points in a multi-core test. To my surprise, the mini PC based on the Intel N150 scored slightly higher in the single-core test, but still lower in the multi-core test. On the other hand, the mini PC powered by AMD R2544 processor has a higher overall score in the Passmark benchmark, especially a significantly higher CPU performance score. As for Cinebench R23 benchmark, the KAMRUI P2 has much better multi-core performance but lower single-core performance than the mini PC based on the Intel N150. And the final benchmark for testing CPU performance is PCMark 10. The new mini PC on the Ryzen Embedded R2544 has about 3600 points there, while the computer on the Intel N150 had about 2600 points in this benchmark. I also want to test the GPU performance of the new mini PC using 3DMark benchmark. The Ryzen R2544 has 1753 points in Firestrike test and 599 points in Still No Mat Light test, which is also about twice as high as the Intel N150 scored. So the AMD Ryzen R2544 CPU with Radeon Vega 8 graphics has much better GPU performance than the Intel N150 CPU with the Intel UHD graphics. This means it is probably better to play games on the KAMRUI P2. Let's give it a try. I installed a few games that are not the most demanding, but they are quite popular, such as Counter-Strike 2, Dota 2, Asphalt Legends, and World of Tanks. Let's start with CS2. I set the resolution to 1080p and the graphics settings to low. Overall, it is comfortable to play. There are brief lags or stuttering in the game, but they are not too bad. As for the next game, Asphalt Legends, the resolution is set to 1080p and the graphics are high. I didn't notice any lag at all in this game. World of Tank and Dota 2 also run smoothly on this computer. In general, you can play games like this on the KAMRUI P2 mini PC, but of course, it is not designed for heavy games. This computer is intended for office, business and home use. For example, you can watch 4K video content on streaming platforms such as YouTube, Netflix and others. The video plays smoothly, but there is a slight delay when I fast forward. I think it is because my internet speed. By the way, I am using a Wi-Fi connection. My internet service provider offers a 100 megabits per second connection, so my download and upload speeds are around 100 megabits per second. I also opened 10 tabs with our videos on YouTube and switched between them with no problems. Moreover, the processor and RAM are not under heavy load. However, I cannot say that I really enjoy editing videos on this computer. Adobe Premiere Pro lags when playing back 4K videos. Don't understand where the data is here. For $79 when the campaign was Pro. They are protected from In addition, exporting a 1-minute clip took about 1 minute and 22 seconds, which is quite a long time. On the other hand, the KAMRUI P2 does an excellent job running the office applications in Microsoft 365, such as Word, PowerPoint and Excel. By the way, I told you about the ports of the KAMRUI P2 mini PC. You can connect 3 monitors to it using USB-C, HDMI and DisplayPort. I only have 2 monitors, and I have connected them via the USB-C port on the front of the mini PC and the HDMI port on the back of it. This is very convenient for office work. So the KAMRUI P2 on the AMD Ryzen Embedded R2544 CPU is a really good mini PC for home, office and business use, and even for light gaming. I like its compact and stylish design and the way it provides quick access to the RAM and SSD. By the way, I would recommend installing a second RAM module to enable dual-channel mode and replace SATA SSD with an NVMe SSD, or at least install an NVMe SSD in the second slot. This will significantly improve your computer's performance. The KAMRUI P2 has many ports, including 3 ports for connecting monitors. This is convenient for office. Overall, it is a strong competitor to computers based on the Intel N150 because it offers higher performance, especially in terms of graphics. And overall, for around $300, it is a really good mini PC. Thank you for watching. See you soon!